Goodness. All right. It looks like we are live, everybody. It is noon on the dot EST, and looks like we've got a great audience registered for today and joining us. Many folks from all over, I would say. So, welcome everybody. We are excited that you're joining us today. We're just going to give it a minute or two just so that everybody can get into the room here with us. I love that you are already saying in the audience chat where you're from. That's exciting. Please keep that coming so we know where everybody is. We love to see where we're all coming from. I live in Ottawa, Canada, just so you know where I'm coming at you from. Eric, where are you today?
Atlanta, Georgia.
And Wayne?
Calgary, Alberta.
All right. Wonderful. So I just want to welcome everybody in and say this is going to be the first webinar in our new webinar series. And I'm really excited today to have our founders and our leaders joining us and leading this session. So we have Wayne Sim, who's the CEO of Algo, and we have Eric Bush, who's the co-founder and CEO of Intuiflow. This webinar today, the title and the subject is From Forecast to Flow, and we're going to cover how Algo and Intuiflow are really driving innovation. And I know everybody's curious and excited about the journey that our two companies are about to take together, and that's what we're going to share with everybody today. So I think it's 2 minutes after, so we are going to get going. So if we just want to move ahead, and we're going to cover the agenda. All right, so we are going to go through our CEOs are going to give us a little bit of their background and history and how we got here today. We're going to talk about the strategic rationale behind the joining of Algo and Intuiflow, if you will. We're going to cover a little bit about the path forward that we're going to take and embark upon, and we've been on this path now for a few months, and then we're going to have some closing comments and just wrap up. And so I do want to say to everybody that on your right-hand side, you're going to see a Q&A button there. And we would love it if at any moment you have a thought or a question you want to share with us, please drop it there. And I will moderate that as we go along. And we will cover any questions at the end. And then at the end, we'll also share how you can engage with us a little bit further after today's webinar. So with all that said, I am going to pass it to our CEO of Algo, Wayne Sim. And Wayne, I'm going to let you take it away from there.
Thanks, Karen. Well, I guess first off, welcome, or good morning, I guess, good afternoon, good evening for those in Lahore and India and so on. So we're kind of global at this point in time. I'm going to go a bit off script here, so I'm not going to stick strictly to the slide. I've been in tech since 1978, so I kind of been around forever. Likewise, Eric has probably been around as long as I have, so we've been around the block. And there's something interesting here, and that is, and I want to make a point of this, is that innovation is not driven by super large companies. I mean, multi-billion dollar companies do not drive innovation. Innovation comes from small companies like Algo, like DD Tech, and so on, and that's where new thoughts start, because again, you're not scared of the unknown. So my first company started up in '78. We changed the way process engineering was done. Today, pretty much every process engineer on the planet uses that tech. 2005, we started a company called 3SI, which became Acerna. We took a completely different approach to front office oil and gas. So think of it as think of it as oil and gas supply chain. We kind of grew that from zero to north of 100 million, kind of over a 3-year period, or 3.5-year period. But we didn't do it on our own. We actually did it by taking and combining a number of companies together. We actually combined 7 companies over 3 years. So we took best of breed, people who had innovated and had great technology and so on, maybe let go to market. We brought them together, created a cohesive solution for oil and gas. And today, that solution is the standard solution on gas across the world in terms of Exxon, Shell, Chevron, so on. And everybody uses that today. Um, 2021, we looked at trying to do this again, supply chain. We weren't quite successful because we couldn't find a foundation. So we had a lot of conversations with smaller companies. Eric's was certainly one of those. And in 2023, Algo asked me to come and be their CEO and create a foundational company and kind of do a rinse and repeat of what we'd done in Acerna. So we started that journey, and through that, spent a lot of time with Eric, and we decided together that it was a really good idea to put these two organizations together, and say that's what we're doing here today. So, with that, I'm going to pass it over to Eric to give a bit of his long history as well.
Thanks, Wayne. Yeah, I had a very long career with IBM. I was 31 years with the company, about 2/3 of that in the consulting and systems integration part of the business from 91 through when I retired in 2010. I had a great privilege during my tenure with IBM to work very closely with Dr. Ellie Goldratt. Anybody who's read the book The Goal understands the concepts of theory of constraints, would be familiar with his body of work. He was, having the opportunity to work with him, having read The Goal myself several times, it was kind of a transformative experience for me from a professional standpoint, because those insights that I was able to kind of get through osmosis and through spending so much time with Goldratt really influenced how I approached my roles at IBM. I was managing as the VP of Ops for the consulting division. Our biggest challenge in many ways was the supply chain of consulting skills. Late 90s, early 2000 timeframe, the world was changing. E-business was becoming a major theme. The legacy technologies like operating systems and the like were fading away. And we had to pivot our organization. And a lot of the ideas that I learned through Dr. Goldratt really influenced the strategies that we implemented. Fast forward 10 years, and I've retired from IBM. I'd had enough, and just the opportunity to form DD Tech came along through a former Goldratt colleague who had developed some software, had gotten far enough to know that the solutions work, but also knew he didn't want to be in the tech business. So those assets became kind of the foundation of what we call demand-driven technologies, or DD Tech, and we formed that in 2011. In my IBM experience, I saw a lot of these major manufacturing companies go through their ERP migrations, and at the end of the day, the needle didn't move. The business results hadn't improved and the like. And so I was kind of curious about whether we could do something important in the supply chain arena with these technologies to help influence and help clients get to a better result. And along the way, Wayne reached out. I was getting literally tons of outreaches from investors and the like, and I happened to be wise enough or lucky enough to take the outreach from Wayne. And that was back in 22. And I felt after I met him like we were kindred spirits a bit. And it really helped shape the strategy that we're going to talk about here today. So if we can go to the next slide, I think this is kind of the call to action. This is a chart from the US Federal Reserve. Some of the DD Tech clients will have seen me present this before, but I think it's worth repeating. And it shows the inventory to sales ratio. So it's effectively how many months of inventory are on hand. And it spans the last 30 years. So you go back to 95 through 2025, you can see that the result on the right there is higher than the result on the left in 95. So we're actually in manufacturing turning inventory at a slower rate today than we were 30 years ago. And if you think about that, it has to raise some questions in your mind, because if you would look at SAP's revenue growth over that time, it would be a dramatically different picture, right? And when you realize that there's roughly $1 trillion of inventory in US manufacturing alone, boy, what if we could just shave 10% of that off? That would free up $100 billion of working capital that could do something more important than collecting dust, right? You can see the onset of the pandemic there, that big spike kind of over to the right side. Things were getting a little bit better before the big economic recession in the 08-09 timeframe, but it's been actually declining since then. And it makes you wonder, why in the world are we in this place? And to me, it's a call to action that if you're going to be in the supply chain solution providing space, you've got to make sure that you're doing something to drive better results for clients. If we go to the next slide. Um, because what we also see from the clients and the prospects that we talk to is that people, they're not seeing any improvements in performance. They're struggling to deal with the volatility and the dynamics that are in the markets today. We've got a global marketplace now, companies competing all over the globe from different dimensions. It's making product differentiation hard to achieve. The customer has got this Amazon effect of, when I want it now. So it's becoming harder and harder for companies to actually satisfy the market requirements that their customers are providing to them. And then finally, the software that's out there in the market, and this is where I think Wayne and I have a very similar mindset, is that it's got to be a lot easier than this. That it's so complex. I liken it to the Apollo space capsule. We got a chart on this in a few pages here that we'll talk about. But the user experience is nothing near where it should be. And I think that we share a vision about how we can bring more value into this arena with some of the tools that we have on the respective sides of Algo and DD Tech to help bring that all to life. So with that, Wayne, why don't you talk about some of the synergies that you saw in bringing the two companies together? You're on mute.
Okay, that will work better. Just a little bit of a prelude to this. These opportunities always come with some sort of a change, and let me give some examples. So, 1983, the PC came out. We were the first ones to get on the PC, and what it did was it legitimized interactive computing. It changed the industry. So, I mean, it was a technology change. We took a completely different approach. In Acerna, when we started that, I mean, the highest placed person in the oil and gas company was doing S&OP, or what we call S&OP here, but we call it planning in oil and gas, was a manager. Today, that's an EVP. I mean, it used to take them 13 months to turn a 12-month plan around. Today, they do it in 5 or 6 days. So their ability to take and allocate capital has increased by orders of magnitude. We're at that beginning of that journey here, and the one thing that attracted me to DD Tech a lot is that it's fundamentally different approach in terms of how you do these things. I mean, I look at supply chain from the outside, and I'm an outsider here. And I look at it very much a pushing the rope type of approach is what we've done for a lot of years, and the DD Tech approach is a different approach. I mean, it is pull the rope, and so we're going to look at how we take and go end-to-end supply chain. This is the beginning, so we're going to bring more companies into the fold, and we're going to cover the entire gamut across both vertical and the workflows. So. Our expertise in Algo was really on the S&OP side in terms of forecasting, demand planning, retail, electronics, and so on. Large companies, so enterprise companies like the likes of Microsoft and GB Hi-Fi and so on. DD Tech is kind of is a leader in the DDMRP space, and MRP space. Again, they don't exactly fit hand in glove because they are different approaches. But you can take what Algo was doing and again embed it into a DD Tech solution. So one of the things is that now you've taken and you've got a demand-driven approach that you can actually leverage forecasting in demand planning. So combining the two is going to take and give us not only short-term benefits around S&OE, it's going to give long-term as well. So it's going to take that graph that Eric showed before. It's going to allow us to take and reduce that inventory that's held and increase the number of turns. Because at the end of the day, I mean, this is all about how do you take and reduce the amount of capital that you got tied up in inventory. So that's really our core objective here, is that how do we take and accomplish that. So we're at the beginning of the journey. Stay tuned, because it's going to be a wild ride, and we're gonna make this happen over the next couple of years. So thank you, Eric. I'm going to pass it back to you just to add to that.
And next slide, then. So if you think about it, and there was a book, I'm big about creativity and innovation and things like that. There was a book by a guy named Kessler back in the 60s where it was called The Act of Creation, where his whole hypothesis was that oftentimes some of the best innovations come at the seam kind of between two very different but prevailing ideas. So if you think about forecast-driven planning and then you marry that with demand-driven planning, they often criticize each other and the like, but it's in the seam, in the boundary waters in between there, that a lot of the great innovations, I think, are going to be realized. Each of those paradigms, whether it's forecast-driven planning or demand-driven planning, there's not really blind spots, but there's weaknesses, and it's kind of natural for that to happen. If I look at it from the standpoint of demand driven MRP, it tells you what to do today. But if you're trying to anticipate, maybe you've got a seasonal business, or maybe you've got new product introductions, or you've got other strategies, transitions in your portfolio that you're dealing with, you still need to have that forward visibility. And so you've got to have that part of the ecosystem. It's got to be part of the overall solution. If you're in the forecast driven planning, maybe your execution capabilities could be improved by using true pull techniques, pulling the rope, as Wayne's saying, in terms of inventory replenishment and things like that. The strengths, I think, complement each other quite well. And I think it's important to recognize that there isn't really in supply chain a silver bullet, that there's the need to utilize the right tools in the right settings for the right reasons. And I think that's where I saw that as we got to go deeper into understanding the algo business and the pre closing of the transaction, my goodness, Algo is actually doing demand planning for clients as a service. Not only are they providing a technology, but they understand what it's like to be in the hot seat, trying to do the S&OP plan, trying to develop the inventory plans based on those forecasts. They've got a depth of knowledge that I think is really unique. And complementing that with our capabilities as kind of the world leader in DDMRP and the demand driven operating model, I think provides an opportunity for some really tremendous innovation, some things that we've already started on here in the first 2 months of actually being a combined company. So I think it's important to just recognize that there's nuance to this, that you need to have strengths in either discipline, and the combination of both crafted the right way brings a capability that I don't think anyone else is going to be able to provide. I've not seen, maybe it's out there, but I've not seen the joining of forces of a true heavyweight in demand planning and forecasting get linked up with a heavyweight in the demand driven DDMRP kind of world. So that's where I think a lot of these innovations are going to come from. And we are so excited about where this can lead for us. We can go to the next slide. And this is kind of my aspirational thoughts. I like in today's software, if you, especially I pick on the Gartner Magic Quadrant solutions that are out there that everybody knows many companies have implemented. But if you really look at the implementations, we've displaced Blue Yonder at one of our clients. It's just so complicated, and the users are overwhelmed trying to understand how best to do things. I liken it to the Apollo space capsule, which is the image you see at the top of the screen. Back in the 70s, when MRP was frankly invented, we were going to the moon, but only the best of the best of the best got to go on that journey, because literally the astronauts were part of the computer getting to the moon and back. They had to flip the switches, turn the buttons and knobs, took a tremendous amount of training and experience to be able to go on that journey. And yet today, SpaceX is sending civilians to outer space with limited training, cool looking spacesuits and iPads, right? The rocket lands on the tail. I mean, how is it that human beings can engineer that kind of capability, and yet supply chain software really hasn't been modernized? It's been a lot of, my perspective, a lot of lipstick on the pig, people trying to put more functionality on top of a system that fundamentally has some flawed logic to it, that also then puts the burden on the shoulders of the user to try to make sense of everything that's going on. When they don't trust what the system's telling them, then guess where they go? They go to Excel, because at least they know how the rules are that they created in their spreadsheet are conducted, and they can try to get through their day. I think that's a lot of why that inventory turnover rate hasn't improved over the time. And so it's important to just recognize that it's time to do something different, to go the way Elon Musk would do, challenge all the assumptions, boil the problems down so that there is no underlying assumptions, and then we can find new ways of doing things. And I think the marriage of DD Tech and Algo, and just joining forces as we have here, presents some phenomenal opportunities. Through all those interesting investor discussions I had, and I, believe me, had a lot of them, speed dating at these growth conferences and you name it, I realized two things. One is there's tons of capital available. So finding money isn't really the problem. The problem is more about finding the right people to work with. And when Wayne and I got hooked up I knew this was going to be the combination that was going to work for us. So I was really thrilled that we got the deal finally done. Had a chance to toast each other when we were together in LA earlier this year, and are really, really excited about where things are going from here. I think our next slide is a couple FAQs that we just want to kind of. Did we miss that one?
No, it's after this one, Aaron. So
Okay.
I'm just gonna cover this real quickly. So just kind of where we are today. We're again not a huge organization. We're not a Yonder Connexus, but again, we do have critical mass. We're across the planet. We got about it says 200. We have about 250 staff, kind of around the world. As Eric said, one of the things we have is we've got a lot of domain expertise in this organization, more than I've had in any other organization. So we've got a lot of people who have been there, done that, and can empathize with the problems that people are having. So that intelligence is going into the technology, and again, they can bring to us. Again, it's always good to take and hear directly. So. I think just to reiterate what I said before, I mean, this is the beginning of this journey for us. The one thing that makes, again, I've done a lot of acquisitions in my time, but the one thing that makes acquisitions successful, even more successful than taking and aligning technologies, is cultural alignment. That's the one thing that has worked very well here. I think the thing is the cultures between DD Tech and Algo are hand in glove. I mean, they've aligned perfectly, which is great. So we're really looking at taking and accelerating our current path, and again, bringing new technology to bear, new workflows, innovative thinking, and doing things a little bit differently. So, I mean, this is not a one-year journey. This is something that's going to take and to take and drive this through. It's going to take 5 to 10 years. That's how long it takes to change an industry, maybe even a bit longer. So stay tuned. I mean, it's going to be an exciting journey.
Yeah, so on the FAQs, one of the questions I got is we're starting to inform our clients of our merger with Algo. Does this mean you're kind of giving up on DDMRP? And the answer is emphatically no. It's not about that at all. And hopefully that's come out in the thoughts we've shared with you today. We are absolutely committed to retaining the DNA that we have around the demand-driven methods. We also know that the teaming with Algo and the forecast and demand-driven capabilities will enrich and expand our S&OP capabilities, which are important to any client that's out there. So you can still have both of these dimensions alive and vibrant in your environment and getting good results from that as well. In fact, we're going to be training up a good number of Algo associates on DDMRP. We're going to be mobilizing about 40 people on DDMRP, getting their DDP certifications and things like that. So we'll be sharing news about that as we go forward. Our next question, what Algo capabilities will be enabled? So one of the first things we started on was right off the bat was enabling a new demand planning module that will be based in Intuiflow. We have a relationship with SKU Science. Those of the DD Tech clients that are out there might be aware of that. We're going to continue to respect that relationship, but we know longer term that having Algo capabilities native into the Intuiflow database and architecture is going to provide some really interesting capabilities as we go down the road. And then on the other side of the coin, will Algo solutions incorporate DDMRP? I think what we see is that the Intuiflow platform is going to give us the foundation to stand on. So it's probably that we would look to adopt Intuiflow across some of the Algo legacy clients when we have the right situations that would afford that. And that's how we're going to bring those two worlds together. So hopefully hitting those top 3 questions that we thought of would help. Karen, do we have questions to address here? Let's see. I'll click on the Q&A button. Gavin Davidson. How do I know if DDMRP will work for me versus traditional planning tools? Oh, thank you, Karen. Long time no see. Gavin, yes. I think and that was kind of the last slide that we'll share here, is we offer this simulation capability, and where it allows you to understand based on your historical demand and your item master data, we can do simulations that show where DDMRP fits and where it may not fit. And that's what this offers. You can use that QR code to make a request to get set up to do a simulation, as we call it. And it really is going to be dependent on the nature of your business. We were dealing with a mining company equipment manufacturer who had a long tail of slow moving parts. And we've got capabilities to provide smart min max for that long tail, where dynamic DDMRP buffers may not be the best fit. There's other cases where you've got, short life cycle components that you're going to kind of buy and you're planning to the market. You're going to have to be forecast driven. And those simulations that I'm talking about really help kind of parse that story out and put it in the context that a company could understand in terms of knowing their part portfolio, how they behave, where can we find a fit for DDMRP and where are we going to follow more traditional methods. And the functionality is obviously in the software to handle both of those.
We did have this other question. I don't know if you want to address this, Eric or Wayne?
Yes. So one of our strategies will be to absolutely bring a demand planning capability based on Algo concepts into the NetSuite version of our Intuiflow software. It runs native in NetSuite, which is a great benefit because all the navigation is directly inside the ERP. And absolutely, we have a plan to, we're actually going to be starting this work here in the next month, moving forward on that front.
Okay, and we've got an additional question here.
Do you see the possibility of MRP completely disappearing and being replaced? That's a great question. There is in every business certain stories. Like if I'm a heavy make to order, engineer to order, I make one thing of one time for a given client's requirements. I'm typically going to be doing MRP based on whatever that job requirement would be. Within DDMRP, you've got MRP explosions and the ability to time phase all the dependent activities in creating that end item. But it may be more applicable in those kind of project-oriented or engineer-to-oriented businesses to use conventional MRP. Where you've got recurring usage, items that have more of a make-to-stock orientation, I think we have seen time and time again, even with seasonalities, that DDMRP is quite effective because you can utilize the forecasted rate of demand for sizing buffers and things like that. So as Karen mentioned, we're going to have a series of webinars over the coming weeks and months that'll help kind of bring more light to the how-tos behind all of this. The scope of our webinar today was really to just talk about the rationale of why we think bringing the two companies together makes so much sense. And in many ways, make sure that all of you who are DDMRP advocates and the like understand we're not changing course on that story at all, right? Any other questions, Karen?
I think that's it for the live questions that we had there. As always, everybody who registers for the webinar will receive a recording and you'll receive a follow-up email. And please do, if you're interested, click on the QR code here and you can book a workshop with one of our subject matter experts and learn more about how Algo and Intuiflow can help you with your challenges that you're facing in your business. Wayne, any final closing thoughts, or Eric?
No, I guess thank you everybody for attending. As Eric said, I mean, this is kind of the beginning of the series. We're going to keep you up to date. We do want one of the things. We don't want to do this by ourselves or in a vacuum. So we want to have two-way communication with the industry, with our customers, with the marketplace, and because again, the best things are created collaboratively. So, we're going to be reaching out to you and getting your ideas and so on, and they will go into our product marketing, and you will see a lot of your ideas coming out of the product. So you're going to see a different way of doing things, but a pretty rapid evolution over the next 2 to 3 years in terms of kind of change the way we're doing things. And again, fixing that graph that Eric put up there before in terms of taking that 10% out of that inventory. So thank you.
Yeah, wonderful. Eric, all good?
It's all good. I appreciate everybody joining today. Hopefully the message is clear. We're so excited about the journey going forward and the innovations that we are very, very committed to delivering to the market.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, Eric. Thank you, Wayne, for sharing more information with our audience. This has been great. And stay tuned, everybody, for webinars in the future. And we do appreciate your time. So have a wonderful Thursday, and we'll see you again soon.
Thanks all.
Thanks
Thanks.
all.
Bye.